Hi. I want to talk about, I'm really small on the screen. Can you see me? Yes. I'm going to share this really quickly because I want as many people as possible to see this. So if you've struggled with perfectionism, please share it as well. This is a huge topic, and it's one that is, it's keeping us with that sort of mask on, so we can't really connect to each other. And most of us want to feel connected. We want to feel loved. We want to feel seen as the people we are. We want to feel accepted as the people we are. And when we are trying to be perfect to earn love and to earn respect and to be accepted, then we can't truly connect. So please do everyone a favor and share this video so that we can get past that and start to really connect with each other. Okay, so I shared it. Here we go. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about protectionism. Oh, wait, I mean perfectionism. Oh, no, I mean protectionism. Right? So most of us are perfectionists because of something. Because of something. We're trying to protect ourselves, right? From the disappointment of failure, from being rejected, from being put on the spot and not knowing the answer and being embarrassed, from being, from feeling like, did we already say feeling like we failed, from feeling hurt, from feeling abandoned, right? So we choose these techniques, let me move my blanket, we choose this technique of perfectionism and trying to control your environment, right? Which is a lot of what perfectionism is, trying to control your environment in order to feel safer in ourselves. And that's just protectionism, not perfectionism, right? Like, okay, let's call it what it really is. And the only person, unfortunately, that it damages is ourselves, right? It doesn't get us what we actually want, which is the feeling of safety and acceptance and love and connection and really being seen as who we are and loved as who we are. It doesn't get us that. It gets us this stress and anxiety and like pressure to continually be better and more indifferent. So it's not actually helping us get the thing that we want. So it's not a useful technique. It's not a useful technique. And it doesn't allow us to control the environment, which is another thing that we're trying to get at with perfectionism, right? Is if I can control the environment and I can make it 100%, then I can make it 100% safe, and then I will be, insert for you, loved, accepted, safe, etc. So it's not working. So it's not a good technique, and it's not one we need to keep up, right? Because it's just adding stress and anxiety to our lives. And for many of us, it's probably also blocking us from doing some things we want, like finishing things, starting that amazing creative project that you have in your heart that you haven't started, like a book or any of that. Hello, I'm talking to myself here, right? I make movies. I make videos about things that I know about because I'm working with them. So I don't think I've ever spoken on something that I have not felt on some level. So this is near and dear to me, as everything that we talk about is, because it's all part of the process of becoming you, right? Which is my main focus, becoming you. And becoming you means being in a space of acceptance and love for the self and being able to shine that in the world in a way that feels really good. So if instead of perfectionism is protectionism, what other option is there? And you know, I live in upstate New York, I'm wearing a giant sweater, so I'm thinking about snow. And if you think of perfectionism like trying to protect ourselves from hurt, from rejection, from embarrassment, from whatever it is, then it's kind of like putting on a snowsuit, like a full body snowsuit, and we're just making the snowsuit bigger and bigger and bigger the more we self-perfect. The more we're like, well, if I look perfect and I act perfect and I have perfect manners and I write perfectly and I do the thing perfectly and I show up perfectly, like we're just adding layers to our snowsuit. But what if instead of using perfectionism as protection and the snowsuit, we stripped it back instead? And what I mean by that is we went straight, if we went, little fuzzy thing, if we went straight to the core of ourselves and the fear instead, and really turned towards it and said, hey, what's going on here? What's going on here? When I feel like I need to stay up till midnight revising all these things and making sure that they're perfect, why? Why am I doing that? Am I doing that for the reasons we tell ourselves, right? Well, I have high integrity and I have a high standard for myself. Or are we doing it for a deeper reason? well, if I don't do it, then it's unacceptable to me because I'm unacceptable to me unless I show up in the absolute best and possible way. And if I don't, then I'm a failure. Right? And failures don't deserve love, do they? Nope. Or that's what the mind tells us, right? Nope. Failures don't deserve love. Or, well, I have to over prepare for this meeting as I have to over prepare for everything because if I get put on the spot and I don't know the answer, then I'm going to be embarrassed and everybody's going to think that I'm just, I'm just a joke. That feeling of embarrassment is really scary. And so the heart so the mind is like, over prepare. I can't survive that. The ego can't survive that, right? Now, I'm an ego lover, so I'm not saying we ever get rid of the ego, but the ego can't survive that kind of pain, that shame of embarrassment, that shame of realizing that we might be imperfect, we might be flawed, we might be hurt. The ego doesn't want to feel any of that. The heart and the soul are way bigger, and they're like, yeah, we're fine. We're going to be fine. But when we associate with the mind all the time, what happens is we get really scared. And so we cope with the fear through protectionism, right? So if we want to move past this in a real way, and I don't talk about easy tips here, right? Like they're simple, but they're not easy because we're talking about soul level work. I'm talking about like fixing this. Like let's move into our true selves for good, right? You got to be really on the journey if you're going to hang out with me or get stuff out of this, right? And which is why also, if you tried everything before and you're still cycling through the same old patterns of confusion about who you are and your purpose and what makes you happy and your soul and satisfaction and all of that, like, I'm probably a good balm for that. It probably feels really good to be here because we're talking about the real stuff. So if we're going to look at perfectionism and instead of just like some pass all thoughts about it, we're going to say, no, let's really tackle this. What's it going to take? What's it going to take to drop this as a tactic to feel safe? And from my experience, it takes going straight to the fear. Because when we go straight to the fear, we do a really cool thing in the ego. We go to the ego like, yeah, I get that you're afraid, but I am much stronger and I have the courage in my heart. I have the courage in my beingness, in who I am, not just my personality, not just my persona, not just the mask that I wear of the role that I play, mother, sister, daughter, worker, boss, whatever it is, student, teacher. I have strength within my beingness that my persona and my role don't have. And so when I go straight to the fear, I switch to my beingness, right? And when we switch to the beingness, we have the capacity to be with that fear. Now, we don't have to get rid of that fear, right? Because fear isn't going to go anywhere. Fear is one of the reasons that we grow. It's one of the things that encourages us to expand. It's one of the things that tunes us into our vulnerability and allows us to connect with people and encourages us to be real and show up with people, right? Like courage is that space of oh my God, I'm going to cry, of like really deep beauty and ability to sit with people in pain and in fear. And a lot of people are in pain and in fear. In fact, all of us are in pain and in fear all the time. It's just we have other emotions too, right? And most of us, we like to, oh my gosh. Most of us, we like to brush over the unpleasant ones. We want to brush over the hurt and the pain and pretend that they're not there and that we're invincible and that we can control everything and that we're not vulnerable, because if we're vulnerable, we're going to be hurt. But guess what? There's a part of you that finds so much strength in being vulnerable. And I don't mean strength as in like you're never going to get hurt. You can always protect yourself. I don't mean that kind of strength. I mean the strength of knowing that you are more massive than any fear. You are more massive than any circumstance. You are more massive than any hurdle. You are more massive than any hint of hurt or slight or embarrassment. And that part of you is infinite. And that part of you, when you tap into it, feels pretty good. And it feels really strong. And it feels like it can hold everything and not be taken down by any of it. And even when facing the absolute destruction of the mind and the identity. Meaning, maybe you lose your job. Maybe you, this is an example that I play with in my own life, not for fun, but because, it's really invited me to learn some things. Even if I have a deep, deep fear that something horrible might happen to me, I might be kidnapped and raped, I might be, horrible things. Horrible things. I mean, they don't even have to be that bad. It could be lose your job. It could be, have a disease. It could be, go through a divorce or have a breakup or feel alone or move somewhere strange by yourself, right? The identity dissolves. And yet there is still a part of you that's way bigger than any of that. There's a part of you that can still say, I love you, right? Even though the identity that we held on to as, worker, mother, wife, father, husband, teacher, changed. So, wow, this got really a little bit off track. But this is really the key of it, right? We got to go to the core of that fear. That fear that if I let go of control, if I don't live up to this exact thing that I said that I'm going to be, because I have to be in order to cope with this feeling. If we go straight to that feeling, whatever it is for you. And there's some examples are hurt, embarrassed, fear of being abandoned, rejected, the stuff that really lies under why we try to perfect ourselves, why we try to protect ourselves. If we go straight to that feeling and that fear, then we build our own sense of strength. We build our own sense of strength. And that's really powerful because you can take that with you everywhere you go. And then you can start to strip back some of these behaviors and strip back some of these choices and choose something else. We can say, well, what happens if I don't over edit or super, I write blog posts. What if I don't super edit that blog post? Am I still okay? Am I still safe? What if I show up for videos like this? Am I still okay? Am I still safe? This is something that came up for me 2 days ago when I wanted to make a video on it. Is because I have an amazing publishing opportunity coming up. In 3 ginormous outlets. Big time national outlets. Perhaps even global outlets. And that's huge, right? That's an amazing opportunity. And the perfectionist in me is you're not professional enough. Your videos aren't professional enough. You're sitting in your rocking chair. You're not professional enough. Your website's not good enough. Blep, That's what came up. Not, oh my gosh, look at this amazing opportunity to share the truth of what I know and help people find healing and happiness in themselves. It wasn't, oh yay, I get to spread my message more and really help people heal and love themselves. No, it was, you're not enough. That's what came up, right? That's what came up for me, and I imagine you probably resonate with that. And, I hosted this retreat this past weekend, my first overnight retreat. Amazing. I don't know what hand gestures to make with one hand because I'm holding a teacup, but it was awesome. And yet, there was fear, right? There was fear that if I make a mistake, I'll be seen. I'll be seen in my humanness, in my failing. That if I didn't get it exactly right, people would be mad at me and thus I'd be abandoned and rejected, right? There was deep fear in this really amazing, exciting thing that I was doing. And what I did, because how that comes out for me is perfectionism. Let me over prepare, let me over correct, let me overdo everything. Hey, Susanna. Let me over give, overdo, overperform, over this, perfectionism, right? And stress myself in the meantime. And what's happening there, that I tuned into it, and what I noticed what's happening there for me is a deep fear that I'm not enough. Deep fear that I'm not enough. I'm going to be rejected. It's not even for me, it's not even embarrassed. It's I'm going to be yelled at and rejected. And seen as a fraud. We all have that. That's a different video. We don't even need to go there. So what I did working with these 2 fears, the one of oh my gosh, I have this amazing opportunity to be, nationally published. And my thought is my videos aren't good enough. Well, okay, maybe not. So I could then switch everything, change everything, blah, blah, blah. Or I can sit with the fear. Because I made a choice of how I was going to show up here. I made a choice of how to make videos. I made a choice of how to run my retreat. I made a choice of how I show up in my life and how I show up in the world and the choices I make in my business. So that fear doesn't mean I need to run out and change everything. It doesn't mean I need to run out and fix everything and do and do and do, which is perfectionism, right? That tactic doesn't have to be my only response to the fear. We could instead turn straight towards the fear and be with it. And when we acknowledge ourselves on that level, when we really acknowledge the truth of what's going on and we say, hey, I feel like I need to just work until 1 a.m, like stressing out about this thing and getting it just right. If we ask ourselves in that moment, what's really going on here? What am I really afraid of? What's going to happen if I don't? And we dig a little deeper, because sometimes the thing is, well, it's not up to standard. It's not up to my integrity. I do better work than this. We got to dig a little deeper. Okay, but what happens if you don't? What happens if you think people think that you don't? Or what happens if people think that you don't, right? So we dig a little bit deeper and we sit with that fear. Well, I'll be embarrassed. Well, somebody's going to call me out and I'll look stupid. Well, I'll feel alone. I'll feel out of the pack. I'll feel hurt. I'll feel rejected, We dig into that fear and we sit with it, because that is that little kid part of us. It's like throwing a tantrum. And we can throw the little kid's going to throw the tantrum, right? The little kid within us is going to throw the tantrum because it's scared. But the adult part of you doesn't have to choose perfectionism as the recourse. The adult within you can turn towards that child and be like, tell me about it. Tell me more about your fear. That does sound scary. You're right. Do you think we're going to be okay? Think we're going to be okay anyway? Do you think maybe you and me together, the adult self and the kid self, we're going to make it? Because that builds the relationship with yourself. That builds the strength with yourself. And that is an inner resource that you can then build on forever. I think I've made a video about the resource in the inner child, but this is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about using the adult self, the adult capable self, to turn towards that inner tantrum and say, yes, yes, tell me more. Instead of immediately reacting to it and trying to fix it on the level of the external, which means we're just staying in that space of the fear. We're just staying in that space of the inner tantrum and trying to solve it on that level. So I really invite you, the next time you notice that you're in that mode of perfectionism, that you pause for a moment and you ask yourself, what's really going on here? What am I afraid of? What am I afraid of feeling? What am I afraid of experiencing? What am I afraid of having happen? And dig a little bit. You might have to, ask yourself a couple times to get to the real core of it. Because my boss being mad at me isn't really, yeah, okay, your boss is going to be mad at you, but really what's under that? Well, if my boss is mad at me, then I'm never going to get a promotion and I'm always going to be a failure and I'm never going to live up to my soul's potential. That's big. I can see why you might be scared of that, right? I can see why you might be overdoing to try to protect yourself from that really vulnerable space of fear. And that's the thing, is the feelings are never wrong. Because that is that big part of you that feels everything, right? That's that big part of you that is aware and awake to every possible emotion in the whole world. That's the vulnerable part of you. And it's when you go into that vulnerable part of you that you also find the strength. That's the irony, right? It's the grand irony. We think if we just protect ourselves from the vulnerability, putting on the snowsuit of perfectionism, putting on the snowsuit of those tactics, that we'll be protected from the vulnerability, but we're not. It's still there. It's still there. So a better tactic to try, in my book at least, is to turn towards that inner fear, that inner tantrum. Just like you would a little kid and be like, come sit here on my lap, let's talk about it. Tell me more. Let me hold you while you cry and freak out. Let me be there with you, because we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay, and we don't have to jump into action. We don't have to, assume the worst and try to make up for it. We don't have to prove our worth. We don't have to prove our value. We don't have to overgive. We don't have to any of that, right? You apply this literally to any fear. And anytime you find yourself doing something that's really not coming from that place of vastness, which for most of us is most of the time, right? And we discover that we're really letting that inner kid run the show. We're letting the temper tantrum run the show and the fear run the show. So, way forward, turn, when you catch yourself doing it, ask yourself, what's really going on here? What's really going on here? What am I afraid is going to happen? What am I afraid of feeling? What am I trying to avoid? Right? And do I have to do all of this to protect myself from that feeling? Because at the end of the day, I can't really protect myself. I can't really protect myself from life. Hurt is going to happen. Pain is going to happen. But what I can do is build a relationship with myself that gives me the capacity and the strength to be resilient. And that relationship is when the adult in you turns towards that inner child and says, let me be here with you. We're going to be okay. Right? It's a really beautiful space. It's a really, really beautiful space. And that's how we build the capacity to move forward and take more and more courageous actions and put ourselves out there more vulnerably and just stand in who we are without having to try to layer it and top it with all of these habits, right? Like being perfect or being different or pontificating or like putting on the persona. It's when we can really just stand there and be ourselves and be scared poopless that we're not enough and be there anyway. Because that's the inner journey, right? That fear of I'm not enough isn't about the world. It's about me and my own fears and you and your own fears. So the way to solve it isn't out in the world. It isn't out in the world trying to prove your value and worth through other people or trying to get security outside yourself, right? It doesn't work. It's an inside job. We've all heard that. It's an inside job. The security, the feeling of enough, the acceptance, the love that we're seeking through all of these tactics, like perfectionism, they're never going to give us what we really want, which is that relationship with the self that lets us know that we're always safe because we've got our own back. Not in a way that we're defending against anything, but just like, I'm here with you. I'm here with you. I acknowledge my feelings. I accept my feelings. I'm willing to sit with the really painful feelings. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of you. I'm willing to be here. You're not too much for me. I'm not going to leave you. Right? And then we can move forward. And we can start to open our hearts. We can start to be more vulnerable. We can start to drop the mask. Because we're doing the work within ourselves to feel safe and comfortable. We're doing the inner fortifying, right? I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. So the main takeaway from this, if you notice yourself going into perfectionism, catch yourself. What's really going on here? Do some digging. And then can you sit with just the core emotion of it? Fear, panic, right? Sit with the core emotion of it. Just see if you can sit with it. The inner tantrum that's going on. Okay. I just want to mention, since we're live, I've got my Living in Truth program coming up. It's about discovering what your soul really values, what your soul is here to express, what brings your soul joy, and then creating that courage and capacity to live it. So if that's something you've been interested in, what's your purpose? Like you've been wondering, like, what's my purpose? What do I stand for? Who am I beyond my masks, beyond my job titles, beyond the roles that I play in the world? Like, where's the meaning beyond these roles? Where's the meaning in my life beyond these masks that I wear? If that's something that you're really craving, that's what we're going to go straight into and discover what really feeds your soul on a deep level and what is your soul here to share in the world. Like, what's your big message? What's your big soul's message in the world? And how do we live it? and how we live it in a way that feels aligned and inspired and joyful every day, and then gives you the courage to be you more and more and more. So if you haven't seen it, it's called Living Your Truth. It starts in January, but there's a extra special bonus. If you sign up by December 13th, I'm doing a 5-day warm-up to awaken the soul, because a lot of times, over the years of doing this work with people, I've noticed that there's a few key blocks to accepting our soul's truth. Gee, imagine that. We have trouble accepting it. There's a few key blocks to actually being in that space of the soul and accepting it. And so the 5 days in December are just really fun, super simple, very easy to do. We're going to do 5 days of preparation so that we can awaken the soul and start to be in that space, and have it start to communicate with you more clearly and accept it and open to the soul's truth. So we're going to do that by December 13th. So if you want to take part in that special 5-day warm-up, sign up by December 13th. Otherwise, we start January 7th. It's online. Great question, Terry. It's online. So how it works is every week you'll get like a pre-recorded video that walks you through everything with text, a PDF, meditations, and then we'll have a live call about it a few days later. So you'll have time to do the work, and then we'll have a live call about it. And I know life happens and people don't always do the work, so we'll go over it on the call as well. And then on the live call, you get to ask questions, and we get to troubleshoot, individually. We'll take people through it. If people are really stuck and they're like, I just didn't get this week, then we'll go through it live and we'll be able to learn from each other that way. And then at the same time, we have a continuing group that's going on the entire 6 weeks. It's more than 6 weeks if you start December 13th, but the entire 6-week process starting in January, we'll have a group running so that we can check in daily with each other and ask questions. And the benefit to that is most of us, when we start to tune into the soul's truth about who we're meant to be, what our big message is, what our purpose is, what happens is the ego or the mind is like, that's not what I've been doing all this time. Like, that's not possible. It's too easy. That's too simple. No, I have to complicate it. And all these habits like perfectionism and everything else come up. So the group is actually to help sort of call that out. So you can post in there and say, well, I'm struggling with this, or this is happening in my life, or yeah, that's great, but what about this thing that I'm going through, or this experience I had in my past that's really a lot of baggage and caused me a lot of pain. And we can go through that and like point the dots back to your purpose. Point the arrow back to your purpose. Point the arrow back to your purpose. That's my specialty. That I trust life, so anything that comes up in this 6-week period is relevant. It's the literal doorway to the purpose and to living it. So I help people in that group continually go back, continually see how every single aspect of their life, whether it's an event happening, it's something that's stressing them out, it's a really annoying person, it's something good that happened, is always pointing us back to our purpose. So a couple key pieces, you have the work that you get and some time to do it. We get the live call to dig into it together. And then we have the group that's always there as a supportive space and always there really to start to uncover some of these patterns and practice being in that space of the soul. Practice being in the space of the soul. So it's all online or via call. Though there'll probably be video calls because I like to see people face to face. But if some people can't do video, we'll do voice call. There'll be an option for both. So that answers your question. So I can share that here, or you can find it on my page. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about it. It's my flagship program. If you don't know about me or you're new to me, I've been working on this for many, many years. About like soul level visioning of what is, why are you here? Why are you different than me? Why are you and I different? It makes no sense if you think about it. We're both human, right? On a human level, we should be the same because life came through us and so we're here. So why are we different? Like, what is the essence of what we're holding that's different? And what does that mean about the ways that you find joy and what you're here to create and what you're here to express and what you uniquely hold that's a gift for others? And so I'm a strategist by training, so I have this framework that came to me and it adapted over years to strategically get clear on that soul level stuff. What's your soul's vision? What's your soul's purpose? What makes your soul happy? And then how do we connect the dots between those big, big things and actual daily action? because most of us suck at doing the things that really feed our soul, right? That's where we get hung up. Clarity is not the problem. It's the doing. It's the doing the things that actually feed us on that deeper level. And so this program is about living your truth, right? It's about doing those actions. And that's the other reason it's a full 6 weeks or more if you start in December for the warm-up 5 days. And we're in the group because we've got to practice. We've got to practice it. We've got to practice together in that encouraging and supportive space, new ways of being that actually are the ways that our soul is asking for and craving. So it's an amazing process. I've taught it individually 100, 150, 200 times. In groups, I've taught it probably 5 or 6, no, more than that. I've taught it a bunch, like 10 times. It's an amazing process. And I've got, and you also get the DIY course version of it to have with you always. So you can always go back to it. So basically it's a steal. It's like $1,500 worth of value for like $300. It's amazing. And I'm just excited to do it because I think there's no excuse. There's no excuse for me to not share it. And there's no excuse for anybody to go through another year feeling like they don't know who they are and they don't know what they're doing. When it's so easy, right? If we just meet each other and get into that space, we can work it out because that's what I do. And I know I can help. So yeah, that's why I put the price low. I put it $300. I'm like, no, we just have to touch as many people as we can because it like pains me that we suffer in this way, that so many of us are feeling like we don't know who we are and we have these incredible gifts that we can't bring into the world because we don't know how, and that we feel miserable and unhappy and committed to our like suffering because we don't know how to turn it back to the light side of feeling like we're meaningful and living with intention and living our purpose. And they're two sides of the same coin, but we've got to learn the skill, right, to point back to the purpose side. So it's just we gotta help people, right? We gotta share this. We have to share this so that people can start living this way, because when people start living this way, guess what happens? People start caring for themselves. People start knowing how to be with themselves. People stop trying to solve everything outside of themselves, which means we're starting to create peace. We're starting to create inner peace. And when you create inner peace, we create outer peace. This is my way of saving the world. This is my way of saving the world, right? Is helping people find that deep sense of contentment and fulfillment within themselves, knowing who they are and knowing how to feel happy. Thanks, Susanna. You can tell I mean it, right? I'm like, let's get everybody in here. Yeah, we got to do this work because we're ripping each other apart. We're ripping each other apart, trying to mask our insecurities and our fears through being mean to each other, through faking it, through clothes, through, I'm not saying we can't have nice, lovely things. Like, those are all wonderful. Life is beautiful. And it's beautiful when it's enhancing, not trying to cover up something, right, that we're afraid of. And when we do this soul level work to get clear on who we are, then we can start to move into that space of letting ourselves be enhanced by life. And that just stops the fighting. It stops the aggression inside and out. So yeah, I can share that link here if you're interested, or you can message me. It's also on my page here under events. And yeah, let me know what questions you have. If you're just joining now, please go back and watch about the perfectionism/protectionism/snowsuit of safety that perfectionism is, and the question to ask yourself to help move past it, like once and for all, in a really meaningful way. Okay, thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you soon.